Good day, ladies and gentlemen. It's Eric Coffin. I'm speaking to you from the March 2019 Metal Investors Forum, just ahead of the PDAC in Toronto. I'm here with Darin Labrenz, the CEO of Pure Gold Mining, one of the companies I invited to present here. Pure Gold has just issued two separate documents on two parts of the same project, a feasibility study and a PEA on their Madsen project. Those of you unfamiliar with it, Madsen's a very well-known historic mine where Pure Gold's been working on building a new resource and working on basically getting their arms around the financial metrics to put it back into production. I think it's worth pointing out, Darin, that Madsen, because of its history, you've got one, quite a bit of capex that's already there, and two, a pretty short, like you don't have a lot of permitting ahead of you, really. A lot of the permits are already there, right?
No, that's absolutely correct. Madsen Red Lake project really benefits from significant infrastructure, significant permits, and allows us to envision moving the project forward in a very straightforward and timely fashion.
And one thing, you know, when you put out your feasibility study a couple of weeks ago, one thing I pointed out to subscribers, and I think, you know, I got the sense in the market that this was a surprise to people, which it really shouldn't have been. Anyone who follows the mining sector and really follows any large-scale project sector where you got several stages of engineering, I mean, as you went from PEA to feasibility level, the numbers got a little bit worse, which is exactly what always happens when you get a feasibility level. But there's a couple of specific things based on what you can and can't say and talk about in feasibility that probably made things look like they'd gone downhill, if you will, more than they really did. You've got some very obvious and creative things you can do that they weren't ready to put in a feasibility, but it's not a big deal to get them there.
Yeah.
Can you speak to a couple of those things?
Sure. Let me just talk for a moment about the feasibility study. You know, we've got a feasibility study that outlines a 12-year mine life, first time disclosure of reserves, 1 million ounces at 9 grams per ton. The after-tax NPV is 247 million, which is roughly in line with what the PEA said. So from our perspective, we're thrilled with the outcome of the feasibility study. This really is the first phase, if you will, of our development plan for moving forward. But to talk to the second study we put out, our preliminary economic assessment, the PEA was based on some discoveries we've made over the last few years, effectively on the flanks of the Madsen deposit, and those ounces are a combination of indicated and inferred. It's earlier stage, and so wasn't really able to be incorporated into the feasibility plan. But this gives us a first look at what a stage growth program might look like at Madsen. We're really excited about it. The 3 areas, Russet South, Fork, and Wedge, as we describe them. When you think about the Wedge, which forms about 50% of the ounces in the PEA plan, if you will, right. That was, first drill hole was just over 12 months ago. Right. So we've gone from a discovery to resource definition, delineation, and now incorporated into an economic study in a period of just over a year, which is a remarkable result. In terms of being highly accretive, you know, we show them as an end of mine life extension. They provide nearly an additional 4 years of production on top of the 12.2 that we have in the feasibility plan. But importantly, we see an opportunity here with further work to potentially convert inferred resources to indicated. These zones are open for expansion, and we think there's a real opportunity to bring them forward and not only have an impact on mine life, but potentially on the production profile as well.
And I think it probably needs to be pointed out that you know, in my opinion, this is a project that I do not think is going to be particularly difficult to finance. I mean, if you look at some of the metrics that a lot of the bankers look at, which is, you know, NPV to capex is great on this project. I mean, it's basically 3 times as much, which is, and normally it's sort of even Steven is where the bankers start getting nervous. You're way better than that. High IRR. Basically not a large capex for a mining project. It's quite small, really. So I think the financing is going to be relatively easy here. I think you probably want to be doing a lot of your further resource addition works sort of with or out of cash flow. But I think it's worth pointing out there's a lot of target on this project still, and most of the zones, I guess, that are in the mine plan are not closed off zones by and large.
Exactly right. Yeah, our work over the last few years has really demonstrated that, we've called them various things, deposits, zones, et cetera, but it's demonstrated that they're all part of a common mineral system. In fact, when you think about the two past producers on the project, the Madsen Red Lake mine and the Starrett Olsen mine, which are separated by about 3 kilometers, they're controlled by the same structures. It's all part of the same system. So once you recognize that, you're now looking at an endowment where we've got 2.6 million ounces of historical production. We've got 2 million ounces of indicated resources today, 500,000 ounces of inferred resources. But there's expansive gaps between each of those zones, and we think that they're really prospective for additional work and additional discovery.
And I guess as you start mining, you're also going to go deeper too, because of course Red Lake, one of the things Red Lake is justifiably famous for is the high grade shoots in Red Lake just keep going. I mean, I'm not sure they've found the bottom of the ones in the original Red Lake mine.
No, that's correct, and that's we're really excited about that. When you look at the core part of the Madsen Red Lake deposit, the subject of the feasibility study, we've defined resources in a mine plan down to about 1,300 meter depth. In fact, we drilled a hole a year and a half ago, and it was 240 meters below any historic mining at Madsen, and returned 34.6 grams per ton over 4.3 meters.
Right.
There's a hole drilled in 2011 that intersected the deposit at 2.1 kilometers vertical with 14.3 grams per ton over 2 meters. Now you think about that. We've got a mine plan on the top, 12 to 1,300 meters. The Red Lake mine, 20 kilometers to the north of us, is mining at 2.5 kilometer depth. We think there's a huge prize there. And importantly, by about year 3 in our mine plan, we're down 800 to 900 meters underground. We're stepping off in the hanging wall, establishing an exploration drift, and it'll give us an opportunity to start to really define that potential.
And and of course, and those of you that are familiar with, which you may not be, the Goldcorp story and the Goldcorp mine itself, of course, that's where they did a lot of the heavy lifting. There was a lot of underground drifting involved. There's a lot of stuff under Kushner, under the Narrows there, where that's really where they're drilling platform. They waited to get that platform in, and you guys are effectively going to be doing the same thing as you mine.
Yeah.
It's a very nice high-grade deposit, great jurisdiction. Red Lake's, for good reason, one of the world's most famous gold camps. This is a story I think you really want to be paying attention to. I think it's priced really great for something where I expect the formal production/financing decision to come very fast, and where the timeline to production from that decision is actually very short. It's about 1 year from saying go to basically mining ore and putting it through the mill. And I think there's, like most of the Red Lake, the good deposits there's tons of room to grow. I think PGM's a great story that you really want to be taking a look at and paying attention to right now as they go through that decision. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Cheers.
Yep.